Hello everybody, welcome back to Language, Litigation, and Integration. I am your host. We discuss current events with emphasis on law, but really anything with language, litigation, or integration. So some of the earlier episodes you might see we discussed the actual form and structure of language. I'm a research scientist. You can see on my From Rhythm to Algorithm series, we derive physics and mathematics. But in this section, a lot of the proofing that I've done actually applies substantially to law, because anything where logic is presented, there's consistency. And so what I've done in research, and it applies to effectively everything, literally, but certainly has definitive aspects to legal discourse, jurisprudence, and then we add any historical relevance. So covering major news stories, current events, reporting on them as if they're history in the sense of a long time ago, meaning I'm not political, I'm not religious, I'm not trying to further one point. If I say one thing, or a bunch of Republicans would be like, yeah, that's not what's happening. Or if I say something and a bunch of Democrats would be like, yeah, that's also not what's happening. And so it's important for, if you do watch these videos, that my personal position is, again, I'm currently seeking asylum. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the Constitution gives you a right to your writings and discoveries. That's my research. And the refusal to acknowledge my research has literally destroyed my income potential. It's destroyed my ability to have a career and a family. So if you basically imagine a normal dude that was like, hey guys, I want to have a career and a family, and just kind of do what everybody else is doing. And then everyone else is like, fuck that guy. Well, that guy's me. And so point being is I have no ideology. I'm just reporting on the things that I see. In addition to just me personally, Brad here, there's definitive logic that I've proven that has relevance to application of law. And so just kind of going over any current events, anything that pops to mind, anything that presents itself through the news that is I want to comment on. And so obviously we have the kind of the big story right now is this ICE. We have this federal law enforcement agency, Immigration Control Enforcement, ICE. They've been around for a while, but just a section of the federal government in the United States involved. Again, I don't even know the hierarchy. There are so many state departments and blah, 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 three-letter agencies. So it's hard to kind of even to know the hierarchy, but I'm assuming it's one of the highest on immigration control. The point being is it's a department or organization with authority. They come in, we're federal law enforcement, state, local people have to kind of abide by what we do. So we've seen there's been some deadly incidences with this Nicole Renee Good. We covered that instance. Again, both of them I would prosecute as murder. And so a little more commentary on the Preddy situation. Turns out he had a SIG 320, which is a classic. That's the big one. If you've seen anything, I'm sure if you've seen anything to do with guns or firearm circles, that is the firearm that is noted for kind of going off with so the actual diction for this is interesting legally to me. I kind of like uncommanded. I don't really like any of them, but I think the best one that I don't like is uncommanded, because I've seen referred to uncommanded, we'll just call them uncommanded discharges, meaning mechanical failure of the weapon itself, not a user error. And so that is a distinct difference between negligent discharge. I've seen someone report, again, I didn't write it down what news outlet or reporter, but someone calling what is identified as uncommanded discharge as a negligent discharge. No, negligence is negligence, meaning the user is doing something that is negligent. And so for all intended purposes, I don't even know what I think it's intended. I think it's intended purposes, the phrase, whatever, but for everything that's relevant, uncommanded discharge is fine, at least for my discussion. But that was the firearm, so some discussion comes up was, it's very clear, again, that's why I conjectured, or I thought was happening without the audio, or I'd seen all the camera angles enough to make a video, but you just see some sort of tussle, the actual interaction, again, there was no situation, there's no level of depravity that's going to occur from a practical standpoint in which a citizen should intervene with a law enforcement agent actively doing something. It can be the most wrong shit in the world, but if you can just sit there and say, what am I going to accomplish? If this guy's violating somebody else's rights, what am I going to do stepping in? He's just going to violate your rights too. So there's a very practical aspect to me of controlling your actions, controlling your behavior. You can see something, you can get all of that emotional rage, and you could be in the right. That is something morals are objective. Something's objectively happening wrong, but then the question has to arise, what practical impact can my action make? And so interfering with law enforcement pretty much at any stage, unless somehow you're more law enforcement, there's objectively nothing you can practically accomplish. And so I would never intervene. Again, you have these two, the video opens up with the Preddy interaction. The Renee Good interaction, again, we don't really have much lead in, but trying to flee the scene, the wheel well clearly turned to the side. Point being is I would prosecute that one as second degree. Both Preddy and Good, I'm not a fan of protests to begin with. I don't think they accomplished anything. And then certainly to go there with this, any sort of emotional output at any point in time just makes no sense to me. If you're going to do something, you do it. If you're going to get all angsty and provocative, I just don't understand what the functionality is. And so again, trying to be objective from any sort of commentary I can provide for these interactions. Not a fan of the protesting, certainly not a death sentence, certainly not even, like, again, should law enforcement, the Renee Good video, again, I don't know how that one starts, like how her car gets turned sideways, so you can't comment on what you don't know. But that one was a bad shoot, second degree pursuant murder, what I would prosecute attorney generally wise. But then for this Preddy, back to there's some discussion of the SIG 320, but it just looks like he's armed, concealed. They're not aware of the firearm. They get into a tussle. Why he puts himself in that situation on a personal level, I would never do, never recommend anybody doing. Is that a death sentence? No. Should you be able to have, as the law is written, Second Amendment, hoorah, hoorah, right? If you're allowed to have a firearm, again, to me, it is no different. If you have a firearm on your person and there's no attempt to reach or draw for it whatsoever, there's no added anything. Like that's just you carrying your wallet. That's you carrying any other item you would carry. And so he kind of puts his hands up to again when the ICE officers pepper spraying these two chicks. Not sure why he again intervening in this situation to begin with. Certainly not a death sentence, certainly not something that should have occurred. We commented on that. One of the agents, kind of a heavier set dude, takes one of the gun away, and then you can see franticness, and then the 10 rounds killing the Preddy citizen. And so we covered that as best. Again, nothing definitive came out about that, but just the SIG 320 was kind of funny. Again, just again the reference to the gun in the gun culture, but like I said, the actual having a gun on your person should not have any sort of more anything than just a regular object if it is not reached for or drawn. I would even say, like, because I want there to be a difference between reaching for and drawing as well. Because just even positioning your hand, I mean, it's very natural if you've ever watched one of those fat cops, again, it's just a resting position. Like if you have a gun belt, it's very natural to kind of have your hand like in that resting position. So then it cannot be, in every cop that has ever just stood idly somewhere knows what that is. And so it's like, if you're a citizen, again, cops should be held to a higher standard. So if you're just, if you have a gun belt and you're at a range and you're just like, a natural posture is to rest your hand. So would that be considered a reach? And so there should be a definitive thing between drawing and everything else. And so point being is clearly Preddy had not drawn, and I don't even think he even reached for his gun whatsoever. And so then somebody yells gun, gun, gun. From the law enforcement perspective, I don't think you should have training and awareness to articulate something more than just gun, therefore shoot. Clearly, I mean, again, terrible shoot overall, just trying to provide any commentary I can. And then so now what's come out, additionally to what we've covered before, is there's this previous video of him 10 or 11 days prior, the Preddy citizen, just trying to report on it as it comes to me. Not trying to make some ideological statement. But there's this video of him, spitting on a car, definitely kicking out a tail license plate. The family comes out and confirms, this is him. AI had matched the face to, 90% accuracy, clearly going to generate the conversation from, look, clearly he's, and there's this incident, he's violent towards, kind of boosting the Noam, Homan, Trump rhetoric of, Noam coming out saying he's a terrorist. I mean, that type of verb is just, like prosecutably egregious. And But there's some, legitimate evidence to saying, he's antagonistic towards, or even damaging property, regardless of whose property is always a crime. And then I don't know if I agree with the legality of added penalty for government property as opposed to private property. Property is property, so if you damage it, you should replace it. To me, that's pretty straightforward. But there's a video of him damaging properties. So what does that have to do with a future interaction? The extreme from the left is, ICE agents then targeted this guy and wanted to kill him, and then the overblown commentary from the right being, look, clearly he's a menacing, violent threat all of the time. Reality of the situation is if he committed an action on camera or done something in the past that would warrant a warrant, he would already be arrested or being pursued to be arrested. And so if you don't have a warrant issued, to me, that no previous interaction holds any weight in a given interaction in terms of legal actions, doing stuff. But then certainly I would have if I was a police chief or, you were having, I don't know what you guys call it, lineup or table or conferencing before you always go out on your shifts. I would be like, I definitely would see it as negligent from the police officer standpoint to not be like, hey, right, if you have someone that's your average person that you've arrested 25 times, like, you can see interactions with police officers, know the person they're arresting from previous interactions. And so it would be stupid from any person, let alone a police officer or, a public servant capacity, to not be aware of previous interactions. But then that's a personal awareness on an officer. Hey, I know what this guy is capable of. I know what his routines are, but in no way can that articulate into an action. Now, are you going to have overstepping both ways? Meaning, is anybody perfect? No. But to me, then again, you have to be back on the citizen side where the law enforcement have to be held to a higher standard. You should be aware of the people in your community. Meaning, if somebody's out on bail on some bullshit and they killed somebody, or, they pose a threat in a way where it's like the cops going up to interact with them, they're going to be a little wary, but it has to be on the police officer's responsibility to not do anything about it, just to be aware of it, to be prepared on your own end. And so that's my thoughts there, but certainly it would not, again, the biggest legal breaking point for me is if there's because to me, damaging of property would be like a arrestable offense after the immediate incidents. Like, you issue a warrant and you go get somebody, right? If somebody drove past my house and wrecked my car, I would want something to happen for that. And so, the point being is, it's a hard legal stop for me of, if this person's done a crime where there's enough damage or somebody wants to prosecute a case, then you issue a warrant. And then if there's not a warrant issued, then you can't use that or make that a reason for a subsequent interaction. So that the second degree murder, what I've said about the lethal interaction with Preddy has not changed whatsoever with the servicing of this video, but to me, as a law enforcement prepper person, dude, like sergeant helping your patrol officers get ready, it's like you're going to be aware of the people in your community. The more so you are, the more effectively you can do your job. But it certainly you couldn't say, I know this guy's typically a drug dealer, let's go search him for drugs, right? That's discrimination, that's illegal. And just on a personal level, being aware of reputation and of previous action, you can't take that away from a person. And so, but then certainly, again, I immediately written it off as just extension, and there's no evidence. But like, if there was any sort of, the ICE people saying, he's the bad guy, like, let's go target him, obviously that would be first degree conspiracy murder type deal. But that's what I have there in terms of, and then again, generalized to any police interaction with a previous reputation or interaction. If there's not a warrant issued, then you have no basis. It's just each day is a new thing. But we have, so Bovino is out of Minneapolis as the ICE Border Patrol Commander, and he's replaced by Homan in Operation Metro Surge. And so Homan's now, again, this was the title, the headline I responded to was Homan's advice now is to draw down. And I'm just like, weird phrasing for meaning to like remove ICE officers, because draw down, like that's typically like pull your gun out. It's a weird verbiage there. But so it seems to be like that they're from the federal standpoint. It's like, and again, with all of this being said, this is legal analysis. De-escalate everything, everybody, all of the time. I have no idea why anyone on a personal level, you will never see me at a protest. And it's important to know, if you're watching this video, I am sitting here with my rights as violated as possible. Like I am at a profound level of the victim of crime, but it's just the practical aspect of what do you do? And to me, it's just document as much as you can. I have pushed the boundaries as much as I can, and I've done nothing wrong. Like absolutely, objectively nothing. But it's just practically, what am I gonna do? Go hold a sign somewhere? Is anyone gonna care? Because like I said last episode and previous episodes, I have suffered grave bodily harm. I've lost my entire life, have ability to have a career, ability to have a family. Besides being literally murdered, every major felony that could exist is already being committed against me. And a collective, again, racketeering, what the RICO Act is, the government is literally doing to me. And people literally just like, it's the same dispersion of responsibilities if you have a mob of kids and they all go and rob a gas station. If there's 1,000 of them, they feel less responsible than if there's one. It's the same crime. And so I don't come from a place of privilege when I say these things. I come from a place where I'm sitting here with parents in my 60s that they've never really understood me. And I could point you to 10,000 different people with the capacity to click one button and publish and acknowledge my research, and they won't do so. People who knows what it's like to have a rocky relationship with their parents, who knows what it's like to go to math class and people not really get what they're doing. And so it's just like, I'm coming from a place where it's like, my life is fucking destroyed. And there's nothing I can do, and I just try to be as productive as possible. But again, that's where I think about protests, is I don't see any practical outlet. But regardless, de-escalation is what, again, because people don't even, it's like they're at a point where they're not thinking. They're just in this primitive, emotional, and then you add morality where people are right and people are wrong. That is where you have all of this tension, again, from both sides. And so de-escalation is what I would consider the byproduct in the inevitability of maturity. What action practically gets stuff done. But we have, so Bovino is out, and then point being is that guy, like the head, and I don't even know the hierarchy of these people. But you see these videos, this little short dude, and he's like, this is our city, we're gonna hype up our dudes. And anytime I see like a law enforcement officer treating their patrol or their unit as like a fucking high school basketball team getting hyped up to go win the state championship, I mean, that is in no way, shape, or form. I mean, that's little leagues. Like that is just the opposite of the behavior as a leader you're supposed to be demonstrating. So that is atrocious. Glad that guy's out or not. He's replaced by Homan, which is, God forbid, that guy's not much better. And then there's a lawyer that I keep seeing. What is his name? Oh, his name. Everyone, the bald guy. That dude would like click the gas chamber button right now. Stephen Miller. That guy's a ghoul, bro. That guy, keep that guy away from shit. You can just see that shit in his eyeballs, man. That guy's a weirdo. But so we have this guy Homan. Again, he's the one to say drawing down, meaning less agents. It's just like weird verbiage, bro. But so again, we have some new leadership or something. But I think they just trying to scale back this presence of ICE. And I don't know the previous presences of ICE. And so it's like, how much do I see political motivation from the Trump administration? Yes. Yeah. Do I see it in a way where it's like, again, people don't even, and this isn't to mitigate the consequences of what's happening or to not say this is very severe, but they do it in a way where they don't think that's what they're doing. They're just kind of like, Donald Trump was literally a celebrity before he was a president. So they live in this world where the people that like disagree with them for legitimate reasons, they never hear those voices. They just see the extremisms, which are all stupid and nonsense on both sides, and then they're surrounded by people who on a personal level they know is reasonable. And so that's what people need to understand. It's like everyone's reasonable to somebody else. You know? But we have this Homan dude, and so it seems like the tone of the Trump administration is to kind of dial it back, which is good. And again, the protesters should dial it back. Everyone should dial it back, chill out the fuck out, and get rich. And then we have, again, the Miller, Stephen Miller. That dude's straight out of a horror movie. But we have Christy Nome, I'm not really sure again what her like professional capacity is in all of this, but I think she's like out or something. I don't know, but I didn't really have an update on her. That's kind of what's going on again in Minneapolis. I think their ICE was deployed to Springfield, Ohio. I'm in the capital, Columbus, Ohio. But again, I don't go out in public. I go to the state parks when it's not. I don't mind the cold, just when the roads are okay, which the roads are fine. But when there's 8 inches of snow, it's kind of a trek to go walking. But point being is, I have not seen any ICE agents. Just a fun little fact. But I'm also not out in places that are public. I'd imagine there's got to be some in downtown Columbus. But regardless, that's what's going on with the ICE situations. That's what I wanted to comment there. We have the judge removes the death penalty. Well, actually, I want to, before we get that one, we'll do Don Lemon gets arrested in Minnesota, church protest. So Don Lemon was fired from, or let go of, or was a prominent news reporter from CNN in the United States. Is no longer affiliated. He's an independent journalist, but somebody with certainly a big public name in journalism. And so we get arrested at a church protest. So apparently there's a church pastor who was an he was something to do with ICE coordination. I don't know if he's an agent, but something to do with the ICE organization. People want to go in there and disrupt a church service. And so all in all, I mean, people are making a big deal of this to me, or making a big deal out of this, from what I can tell, just being, ha, the leftists got arrested, ha, you disrupted the sanctity of church. Two interesting things. So now again, part of my property is historical proof. What happened in the past is definitive, as much as evidence can provide. And language has words, and those words preserve our memories. And so all of this, again, I'm not going to sit here and re-derive everything, but all of these quote-unquote religious situations aren't religious. Right? There wasn't some big, there's a difference between God and Jesus. I mean, we went through, there's historical implications that people aren't going to accept, and I get that, but it doesn't mean they're not true. And so when you're sitting there legally saying, the sanctity of the church as some big organization, it's like, it's just another public building. And so basically, to me, all of this is, the whole situation here is just nothing more or less than you see prank videos from like Fred Beyer and Jimmy Rowe and Zach Cray, and they go into Home Depot and they start screaming. And frankly, I'm not snitching, guys. But like they do pranks where they specifically scream. And so these protesters were chanting. And so to me, this is just a public disruption in that type of sense, where it's a more like, again, ideologically charged, or a more ideological venue, but it doesn't change the behavior, right? It's a building where people can come in. If you get asked to leave, somebody owns it, you would have to leave in that situation. So Don Lemon gets asked to leave. 4 people get arrested in total. People go in there, they're chanting. Some people say Don was chanting. Some people said Don wasn't chanting. It doesn't really matter if Don was chanting. Point being is that you're in this building where you expect to have the public come in, but then the owner or whoever tells you to leave. You're expected to leave. He does after 7 minutes. And so he was arrested at night. And this is one of those situations where, same way with like the pranks, like sometimes you can, issue a criminal trespass after the fact, to go arrest somebody, again, after the incident. I see that as like political, or again, making a statement. In general, what do I think about making statements about public figures? Pretty neutral on that. Again, like if somebody in power does something bad, again, they have the rights of a citizen, but you say, like just using the example we've talked about recently, the South Korean president getting tried, somebody in high public stature getting tried, or like how do you treat that? To me, it's the same as a citizen. People will make examples out of them. I'm pretty neutral on that, like is making an example of somebody a good or bad thing. I mean, it's just the overall punishment. I mean, I don't think so. I don't think all of it, to me, this is just more antagonism. Like, we're going to go stick it to Don and the leftists. And it's just like, you can arrest people for criminal trespassing. You can issue warnings and shit like after they've left. But it's strange to me to not be arrested at the place and then just to be arrested after. Because again, truly, like the names and the situation here is no different than a public prank where people are causing a disruptance and they're asked to leave. That's the entire legal consequence of this situation to me. And then it was a little different to me, whereas again, all of these like prank people you see, like they'll get stuff in the mail, like they're trespassed from a mall or something after they leave. They never actually like get arrested, but the police officers know who they are. And so to have resources go out and to arrest somebody for a public disturbance, I mean, is politically motivated. And to what cause? It just, and then antagonism. People are like, yeah, dude, we got Don Lemon. I just saw fucking Michael Knowles hasn't popped up on my YouTube in a while, and Megyn Kelly, like, yeah, we got Don, and Michael Knowles cracked open a cigar. Yeah, dude, all's right in the world. Don Lemon got arrested for a public disturbance. Yeah, we preserve the sanctity of the church. Just like, I don't know, guys. You didn't really do anything. So that's all I have to say on that. And then getting to the judge removes the death penalty from Luigi Mangione's case. So he's currently 27. I forget which year it was, but in the past 5, goes and kills United Healthcare, Brian something, CEO of a major public healthcare company. So the sentiment's interesting on this one to me, because to me this is just straight up first-degree murder. Now I would prosecute. And I'm also the guy sitting here saying I'm going to absolutely shitwreck this fraud, racketeering, conspiracy, authority structure that is academia giving licensures to doctors, and then them also all lying about science for the past decade, proven sitting on your desk. So it's very important for people to hear me coming from that. It's like I would absolutely personally prosecute the CEO of a healthcare, yeah, because any person in a place, if you make a decision and that it results in a death, and it's like, again, violating that person's consent, that is a murder. And so if you're the CEO of a company and you're like, oh, well, we're going to approve this drug, and they're like, why are we going to approve this drug? Well, the FDA said it's okay. Well, the FDA said it's okay because it's staffed by these people, and they're all just echoing the sentiment, which is proven. I mean, that's proven. Go watch From Rhythm to Algorithm. It's all documented, syllable by syllable. And so, again, I would prosecute with the healthcare structure. I do not see the academic healthcare structure and then federal agency triangle is the biggest, most detrimental crime syndicate that has ever existed. And so I would prosecute Luigi's actions as first-degree murder. We've covered the lethality of what I think about the death penalty. There would be antagonism to me, though. This would be, I don't agree with the overall sentiment of Luigi did a good thing. I do see antagonism from the healthcare situation, not to Luigi personally, but you can see why it becomes a target. Still, it's just first-degree murder to me. It would be premeditated. So the judge throws away the death penalty. I read this a couple times. I just don't get because they needed like a crime of violence. I guess like the murder had to be, because how like it's like trying to like different crime of violence and a murder happens, like the fuck. But I'm saying like stalking, they said stalking wasn't a crime of violence or didn't meet some legal standard. Which stalking are you a creepy fucking weirdo sitting in a bush looking at a girl walk down the street, genuinely which is still fucking weird as shit, or are you like stalking is haven't put much thought into it. I'm not gonna try to comment on that. But not a crime of violence. A murder was committed, so there's like previous acts. Again, the first degree between second degree kind of being like, did you set out to go kill somebody versus did an argument arise and then you killed somebody? Kind of differentiates something. Stalking, you're already engaging. Yeah, like again, in this situation, like remember I called a public tip line to report fraud twice, and I was accused of stalking. So then it's like where then people project words and say this thing means this and it doesn't. But I did want to put that in there. It's so fucking insane. You literally have a TV show. It's like NBC4i, call this number if you have a crime committed against you. And I literally called that number twice, and it's just the voice recording on the. It was some chick, I forget her name. I keep calling her Sandra Bullock because that's the actress, but it was something Bullock. And they were like, you're stalking her. I'm like, yo, I literally just called. It said, if fraud is being committed against you, call this number. And then I called that number. And then I get on the LinkedIn and I see this news reporter look at my LinkedIn, like not in private mode or anything. And that was my entirety of the interaction, truly. And so then again, remember, you all live in this environment where I'm sitting over here, the victim of profound crime, that I made a lecture series to document this shit. And that's this lecture series. And so stalking, what amounts to stalking, certainly not what the fuck I did, call a public tip line twice, but in general, how do you establish the intention to follow somebody menacingly? I don't know. But Judge Margaret, I don't have her last name, I think that's her last name, did not meet the legal definition of a violent crime. And that's in reference to like the stalking. So somehow the death penalty is off the case because stalking isn't raised to the level of a violent crime. And again, she speaks with authority. Words are the authority, the word of God. In God we trust. Words are naturally defined. So when she speaks with this, the law must be the court's only concern. Stop with this circle-jerking high school concept of perfectionism. The law of the land, nobody's above the law will prevail. Clearly the law is a fucking joke. It is as real as Santa Claus. People talk about it, but people form groups, and then they basically say, is this my responsibility? And how much does this affect my life? And as soon as they can say this is not my responsibility, or this doesn't matter that much, they can and do. So they just see this verbiage when, again, the entire legal structure is being prosecuted with RICO. It's all done in an organized criminal fashion. It's a fact. And so I hate seeing all of this high-flying ideology, again, is there some sort of absolutism. The law will prevail. The law must be the court's only concern. And what she's really appealing to here is the consistency of precedent, which is fucking bullshit. Because again, that's what words have meaning proves, like, stupid. It's effectively the legal posturing of saying, my dad's 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 dad was him, and he owns a big shoe company. Nanner, nanner, boo-boo, little Johnny, you can't ride on my big swing set. And so she's appealing to precedent, and we've proven precedent jurisprudently irrelevant. Words have meaning, words are naturally defined, they are paired to physical processes, the end. And then the actual moral certitude and definitive, I'm going to uphold the law. You're a person, and you're going to be inconsistent, and you're going to be imperfect like everybody else. But that is really it. So yeah, that's what I had for those things. Any stories, really? No real stories. But just again, I just continue. Again, I live at my parents' house. Again, I've never in my entire life been able to go into a grocery store and buy food. I've never have basic financial stability to eat, to sleep, and to work. And that's truly all I want to do. I mean, having a family, you have to have I like females, so you have to have a girl that likes you. That's more of like life has to develop situation. But my rights being violated and not having my money to be able to buy food and to be able to do nature walks, for fuck's sake, or to do anything that I want to do. I have never made a livable wage in direct violation of the law. It's destroyed every aspect of my life. And I'm not even here like asking for publication anymore, asking for acknowledgement. There's literally a full derivation of effectively all sentience on the internet. And I just feel the title, it's going to be like again, I'm done predicting when it's going to end, but like clearly we've made huge steps in that part 260. The completing of ordinality is the most massive mathematical result ever produced. And then there's like, 4 more episodes already, because we're re-deriving. This derivation process never stops. There's just different points where it's poignant enough to say, here, this is a big, humongous step. And again, obviously all of this stuff's worth, how much money this stuff is worth is not, it's worth more than what money could represent. Truly, that's not like even a remote exaggeration. And I'm just asking for a little bit to live my life to some extent, what's like to do anything, man. To go on a road trip, to be able to go to state parks and national parks, go hiking, be able to buy lunch, be able to buy lodging comfortably. I mean, you could easily do that in like 50 grand. And so it's like, I'm working all day. Like there's nothing else for me to do besides to continue to work all day. Because if I just sit here and do nothing, you generate the capacity to do what I've done. Like I'm obviously born with the capacity, but there's still like a learning curve. But once you my productivity rate, there's no difficulty to do anything, and I'm not allowed to do anything. It's just like the weirdest headspace all day, every day. And I've given up on that. Like I've given up on being able to actually have a career, go build businesses, go on CNBC and talk about my different businesses. Like I just want a little bit of money. I have to sustain life. And the people that watch these videos, how do you not fucking get that? That's all I'm asking for, is a little bit of money just to be able to eat, to be able to sleep, and to be able to work. And that can be done on like 60 grand a year. And the answer is still no. Why? I have no fucking idea. But that is what I have for you today. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.